Hello and welcome to this latest episode of the Pop Culture Coram Deo podcast. If you have come in because you heard about us through Podbean, we want to say a special welcome. And to all the returning listeners, we also want to say thanks for coming back. My name is Jeff. I'm one of your regular hosts, and I'm here with Jared Moore, the other host of this show. Jared, how are things going for you right now, man?
Doing well, brother.
This episode, we are talking about the latest installment from the Jurassic Park franchise, I guess now the Jurassic World franchise, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which has been raking in the money at the box office. Have you read many reviews for this movie, Jared?
I have not, but I just saw on IMDb it got a 6.6, which is kind of low.
Yeah, in sort of getting ready for this episode, I did read a bunch of reviews, and there's a lot of people being very critical about this movie, but that has not apparently slowed it down one bit at the box office. So, hopefully there are enough people out there who saw this movie, were interested in hearing a little conversation about it, doing some thinking about the film on their own, and tuned in to hear us kind of lead them down that rabbit trail. So, with it in mind, Jared, let me throw the summary at you. You tell me what I got wrong on the kind of capsule I wrote about this movie, okay?
Okay.
When the island home of the dinosaurs from Jurassic World becomes an active volcano, good guys Claire Dearing and Owen Grady are brought in to rescue as many as possible. What they don't know is that there are more sinister forces at work who also want the dinos.
That sounds good, man.
Okay. Well, guys, we try to do this early in the episode, and sometimes we forget to do it in timely fashion. So I'm going to go ahead and get it out of the way here. From here on in, spoiler warning. If you've not seen this movie, I think you don't want to have plot points ruined for you, you just need to hit pause and come back to this episode after you've watched the film. Otherwise, if you press on, we assume that you're totally cool with hearing plot details, and that's going to be how we handle it from here on out, okay? So, with it in mind, one of the kind of negative plot details, we always want to pay attention to the conscience warning because we know that not every conscience can stand watching the movies that we're reviewing, and so we want to give a heads up about some things we found in the movie that Christian consciences might find objectionable. Here's what Plugged In had recorded. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clearly foul. I don't know what you want to say. Foul words, cuss words.
Foul words.
What is the right word? What's another word rather than cuss word?
I don't know, dude, but you sound like a referee, like you're
a foul word.
A foul word.
It's a word about birds. You know why I'm looking for something other than cuss word?
Why are you looking for something, a byword?
I'm looking for something that doesn't make me feel like a redneck. I feel like cuss word is the most redneck thing I say.
Dude, you are a hillbilly. Embrace it.
Cuss words and waspers are the two most redneck things that ever.
We'll see the wasp next week.
I'm going to call Evangeline Lilly's character the wasper. So anyway, 7 cuss words.
There you go.
3 different times when God and Jesus' names are misused, and 1 instance where the British crudity, that's a quote from Plugged In, bloody, is used once. Other than that, there's a ton of violence and gore in this thing. It's a movie about dinosaurs eating people. I'm assuming you're aware of that if you're considering watching this movie, but just heads up to be thorough. Anything else you remember from the movie that might bother a conscience, Jared?
I don't, man.
Okay. So that's the conscience warning. A few film notes before we get started on this one. Jared, are you a Jurassic Park World fan?
Oh yeah, man. That was the first movie that I was so CG when it was the first CG movie I remember. Was the original Jurassic Park, where they're gonna make dinosaurs come alive, it was just It's still nostalgic for me,
Yeah.
Any dinosaur movie I'm gonna go see with Jurassic Park.
Yeah, when I was a little kid, dinosaurs were my jam, man. They I remember I memorized names. I remember when it was a big deal that I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but I think at one point in my childhood they said Diplodocus didn't actually exist, and it was actually brontosauruses instead. And I just remember that rocking my world. And so for yeah, dude, I was like, whatever, man. They've been lying to me for years. I was reading National Geographic literature and stuff.
Dude, that is really funny.
It was the first thing that I got obsessed about.
Really?
Dinosaurs. Yeah. I even went on a family vacation. We went to Utah, and I went to a dig site.
Really? Do you find anything?
Well, I mean, there was stuff to be like it was an active dig site, so you could go look at stuff. They didn't hand me a chisel and a sweep to go out and surface a pterodactyl or something. But yeah,
I thought it was one of those sites. You could go, like they say, dig for dinosaur bones and they'll actually plant like little fragments and stuff.
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's not what this was.
You went to an actual dig site.
I went to an actual dig site.
Y'all just were digging.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool too. But
well, thanks. The way that you're cracking up about it makes me think that maybe that's cool is a little facetious coming from you. But you know what? I'm going to believe the best.
Well, dude, if I told my kids, "Hey, we're going to a dig site," they would be like, "Oh, do we get to dig? Nope. You got to go look at it."
Well, maybe if they were psycho about dinosaurs, it wouldn't be a problem, Jared. So anyway,
dude, maybe you were just super intelligent. That's what it was.
I'm pretty sure the record is clear on that matter. I think we've got plenty of evidence to determine that's not the case. But anyway, yeah, so the first Jurassic Park was just revelatory to me. Have you watched it lately?
I haven't seen it in probably 5 years, but I mean, I probably watch it every 5 years, once every 5 years or more. I mean, I've introduced it to my children.
Yeah. Well, we just did that. We have the Blu-ray set and we just let our kids watch the first one and they ate it up. And man, that stuff holds up. Like visually, those special effects, I feel like are better than some of the stuff I've seen, at theaters recently. So.
And the kid actors in the first one I thought were very good.
Yeah.
And I mean, not only the kid actors, but all of them. I mean, even the creepy dude from Event Horizon. I mean, I think he does an excellent job.
Sam Neill. Yeah, he's great. That's funny you mentioned that because on the latest rewatch, I was totally down for a dinosaur to eat that little girl. But yeah,
you were hoping it changed.
Do what?
You were hoping the movie changed.
Yes, there needs to be a deleted scene or something. But what I was really setting us up to talk about here is that I'm going to watch every movie they release in the Jurassic franchise until I'm physically unable to do so. I'm just going to show up and hand them my money every time they release a new one of these. So if you're looking for someone to be particularly critical about this movie, I'm not your guy, man. Chris Pratt riding a motorcycle through the jungle with velociraptors on either side. Cool, man. Can I buy a T-shirt with that picture on it? I'm totally in.
Absolutely.
I will note, though, that this movie, if you're someone who cares about plot consistency, this movie has all of the plot holes. The biggest one for me that even as a fanboy, I had a hard time getting my head around is how does Claire end up a respected activist rather than a convicted criminal doing hard time after the way she turned the dinosaurs loose on the park in the previous film? That just blew me away, man. I can believe dinosaurs have been resurrected from mosquitoes caught in amber, but her getting away with no criminal repercussions from Jurassic World, just that's a bridge too far, man.
Well, and my biggest plot inconsistency was the fact that the movie paints these guys who are wanting to monetize the dinosaurs as evil. And then, because these guys are going to use the dinosaurs probably as weapons to kill people. And then at the very end, the good guys let the dinosaurs out to kill probably even more people.
That's true. People who are totally unprepared to realize a velociraptor just checked out their subdivision.
That's right. That's exactly right. Like that was the dumbest. And look, animals getting hurt bother me. I understand being attached to animals. I've got a little dog that, I've had for 12 years now. I love this little dog. I understand being attached, but the constant crying over the dinosaurs kind of got to me.
Well, I want to talk about that some more. So stick a pin in that for just a second.
Sure.
One less serious point that I wanted to raise before I think get into more of the meat of this movie, no pun intended. I don't often recommend people go find movie reviews on gamesradar.com. That's not really a bookmark or a site that I check regularly. But a guy on there named Sam Prell, one of their writers, wrote a piece called Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom is the Last Jedi of Jurassic Park movies.
Oh, wow.
And he goes through and charts all the ways that this movie is similar to The Last Jedi. And man, he makes a really good point. So I can't vouch for anything else on the website. I don't know if there is spiritually profitable or negative elements on the site. So just take that, for what it is. But if you want to read a good piece on this that connects Fallen Kingdom to Last Jedi, Google Sam Prell, Jurassic World, Last Jedi, and click the link for gamesradar.com. Pretty interesting read, I thought.
Hmm.
More seriously, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. I think this film wants to play around with two big questions. Now, when I say play around, I don't think it actually spends enough time with the questions to do anything meaningful with them. But nonetheless, it raises two big questions, or at least I think so. You tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Okay.
The first one is sort of the franchise-wide question, which is, even if science can, should it? And in the specific version of that question that's being asked in Fallen Kingdom is, should we overturn the history of natural selection, which means should we make dinos de-extinct? And it ends up working down to a very personal level. If we can use cloning to replace our dead loved ones, should we?
Mm-hmm.
So hot or cold there? Am I onto something you think this movie raises?
Yeah, I think you're right about both those two realities. There may be a third question, as far as, are humans just glorified animals?
Well, so really what I was asking there was a broader general question and a specific version of it.
Mm-hmm.
The second question I've got is, how do we weigh the comparative value of human life versus animal life, if we even distinguish between the two?
Yeah, that's in there definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll get into this a little bit as we go through our process here. So, guys, if you're a new listener, what we try to do with these movies is chop them up into discrete categories, and then kind of go back and put the pieces together in light of God's revelation of himself in Jesus Christ. Try to figure out what ideas the movie wants to sell us on and what we should do with that attempt to persuade us of certain ideas. So to do the analysis, the first thing we're going to do is compare the story of the film we're talking about to the story that God's actually telling in history about his son, Jesus Christ. And we see, along with countless, brighter lights in Christian thought tradition, we see four aspects of the story that God is telling about his son, Jesus Christ, the story that God's telling about Jesus. The first is creation. We know that in the real world, in actual reality, God created everything, and he created it good. So what does this movie tell us is good about the world it's building? We also know that in God's story, the fall entered into the narrative. Man rebelled. Death came through that rebellion. So the story, the film is telling us, what is it trying to tell us is wrong? What's it trying to tell us that should not be this way? Then we look for redemption, because God determined in his sovereign goodness to not let fallenness be the final chapter of the story, but rather that he would enter into the story and he would fix what man had made wrong through his son, Jesus Christ. And so we look to the film and say, what is this film telling us is the mechanism that will make its broken world better? So King Jesus enters into history, dies, rises, takes the throne to reign. That's how God fixes the real story. How does this smaller story, this fictional narrative, how does it tell us things will get fixed? And then lastly, glorification. Through the reign of King Jesus over all things, everything that has gone wrong in the world will be undone, and the cosmos will be set back better than if sin had never entered in. So what does this movie we're looking at tell us the better world will look like within the world it has created? So that's how we chop up the elements of the movie, and we're going to start with creation there. Jared, traditionally, I lead off and tell you to react, so let me give you what I see as the thing that Fallen Kingdom wants to tell us is good in the world it creates, okay?
Sure.
I think this movie presents full-blown religious naturalism, capital N naturalism, that is the worship of nature. So the good in this movie is to submit yourself to the will of nature. I harken back to, there's an opening scene where we get to see Dr. Ian McDonald from the original Jurassic Park, and he's testifying, we assume, before Congress as they're trying to figure out whether or not the animals should be saved from this island that's about to become an active volcano. And McDonald is using language of willing and purpose and choosing, speaking about nature as if nature is intelligent and has a will and a personality and power. And the senator says, basically, are you saying the Almighty did this? And McDonald sort of scoffingly laughs that off and says, no, God doesn't enter the equation. But he spends the entire time talking about nature as if nature was a personal, knowable deity.
Yeah.
And it is just a glaring hypocrisy in this movie. No. It's crazy to think there's an almighty creator but it's completely rational to think that nature has a will that it accomplishes, and to use language like that when talking about natural processes that we otherwise say are just blind and random.
Would you say this is the franchise? I mean, is that consistent kind of with the theme, or is it seemed more overblown in this movie, but it may just be my not remembering or the nostalgia or something.
Well, I've watched these all fairly recently. I will throw on Jurassic World when I'm like doing chores at the house, when I want something on in the background making noise. If it's the theme as pronounced as it is in this movie, I've missed it through multiple rewatchings. I'm like you. I think it's there all along. Basically, the idea is don't tamper with nature. But I feel like in Fallen Kingdom, it becomes full-blown religious naturalism. I know I'm repeating myself, but it just seemed like they cranked the volume up to 11 on that theme.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, and even the ending. I mean, that's why, right?
Yeah. What do you see as fallenness in this movie?
It seems that fallenness is if the dinosaurs die, right? Or if they're used for man's bidding.
Well,
if they're not allowed to flourish in nature, right?
Yeah. So I'm gonna modify it a little bit. You tell me if this is something you're willing to consider or not. I think basically the problem this movie raises is you can't disregard nature's dictates, right? So mankind messed up when they superseded the will of nature in eliminating the dinosaurs by bringing dinosaurs back to life. But now mankind's going to make a similar mistake by not letting nature, through the form of this volcano, eradicate the dinosaurs. Even though I think, not to get too far ahead of what we're doing, but I think this movie wants us to feel sympathetic to the dinosaurs in their plight. But anyway, I just basically see this movie as saying, do what nature wants moment by moment. And if you don't, that's where fallenness comes in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Redemption will come through nature, seeing to it that what nature wills comes to pass, regardless of the schemes of man. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Regardless of that, well, man is intervening to save them. I mean, man made them, and man is intervening to save them. But they were cool with killing the bad dinosaur because I guess that was a monstrosity that man had created.
Just to hit on that point, this came home to me at the end of Fallen Kingdom. Both Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom present these bioengineered dinosaurs that are like hybridizations of other dinosaurs. What was the first one? It was sort of a T-Rex upgrade, and in this one, it's a Velociraptor upgrade. And both times, those super dinosaurs are killed by just run-of-the-mill natural dinosaurs. So yeah, I think you're on to something there. I think they're saying that what nature has produced is ultimately going to conquer what man has done through his scheming. What do you got on glorification?
Well, I think how the world is at the end with dinosaurs running around in suburbia and cities, I think that's glorification, which just blows my mind.
Yeah. I don't know that you're wrong. The way I wrote it down is a better world will be found through kneeling to the expressed will of nature, whatever the consequences. And that's where I see sort of an arbitrariness where, like, if nature wanted them dead, leave them dead. If nature wants them to live, let them live. Back and forth.
You know what terrifies me the most is the pterodactyls. Like being outside with my kids and this giant, like 10, 15-foot bird swooping down. I mean, that like Mothman and all that stuff. I mean, that, to me, like being outside at night, walking from my car and something coming that I can't see that's twice my size. Just, I can't imagine a world with pterodactyls flying around.
I am right now seriously running, different schemes through my brain to figure out how I can capitalize on this to prank you into stark terror the next time I get a chance.
Dude, you better hope I ain't.
I'm going to have to get a giant drone and put pterodactyl wings on it.
Don't do it, man. You need to go listen to some of the Mothman stuff from up in New England. I mean, it is some creepy testimony of like 30 to 50 people. It's whew.
Yeah, anyway. That's called cryptozoology. It's this study of obscure life forms that may or may not be, they may not actually exist. And I'm all about that stuff, dude. I love reading that stuff. So Mothman, Jersey Devil, all that stuff. I'm with you, and it is terrifying. On a more lighthearted note, though, have you seen these memes going around where it's Chris Pratt running through? It's a scene from, I think, Jurassic World. It may be Fallen Kingdom. It's Chris Pratt running through a stream, and there's a pterodactyl bearing down on him, and it says like, "Check out how big the mosquitoes are in North Carolina right now."
That's funny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Pretty witty.
Oh yeah, witty. That's really the first word that leaps to mind when I think about that meme. All right, guys. So we've done the chopping up. We've kind of surfaced the constituent elements of this movie. Now we want to put it back together and make use of it, both in our own understanding, so that we can embrace what is good and reject what is false, but also so that we can serve our neighbor, be that in the church, in discipling contexts, or in just talking to our neighbor who may find the Christian worldview kind of incredible in the sense of the word that says that they just can't believe that it's possible. I don't think Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is going to overturn that, but it does provide a bridge in some ways to kind of get into the ideas that we would call maybe pre-evangelism, where we're trying to help people see the gospel is credible and build those credibility structures. Mm-hmm. So the first question we ask is, what's the story of the film we're looking at? And we want to get it right. We hope we've done that in the previous section you just listened to, where we're going through that movie and subjecting it to the comparison to the story God's telling about Jesus. The next question that we ask is, where are we as the viewers? Where am I in this story? And we want to see the style and shape of the imaginary world. So Jared, as an audience member, where are you at in this movie?
Well, first off, the special effects it's everything that you've grown to expect from this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just as good, if not better, than previous years and previous movies. I mean, everything was excellent. I mean, you feel like these dinosaurs are alive, real. And there's so much intensity. Not only that, but the volcano scene was kind of ridiculous. Them running and the lava getting right close to them, and the stampede of dinosaurs, and him surviving that, and then T-Rex comes in and saves him from a dinosaur. I mean, when I was in the theater, dude, people were almost clapping for the T-Rex killing that bad. T-Rex is the one they're usually running from. I thought that was a bit hokey, but I mean, it was I don't know. It was exciting and enjoyable. I don't go there expecting to have my worldview changed or challenged.
Mm-hmm.
I go there because it was still like you said. We're going to watch probably every one of them that they put out.
Yes, I mean, it would take something egregiously immoral to be
Mm-hmm.
added to these movies to keep me from showing up opening weekend. I love these things.
Yeah, man. And but as far as where I see myself, I don't know that I fit in anywhere, man. I don't know. I don't identify even with Chris Pratt necessarily. I mean, I want to fight the bad guys and don't think the dinosaurs should be used as weapons, but it's because that if they're used as weapons, I don't think we can control them enough to actually, they'll escape and kill innocent people, and so I just don't fit in anywhere in this movie.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I was actually struggling with this question myself. I know that I'm rooting for Claire and Owen,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's because I like Chris Pratt as an actor.
Yeah.
I know I'm rooting against the bad guys, both the corporate evil geniuses and their literal mercenary bad guys, but I don't know if I'm supposed to be rooting for the dinosaurs to survive.
Mm-hmm.
If so, this movie is just it's like helplessly jumbled up in mixed messaging, because they trot out this guy that we're supposed to be thrilled to see in Ian McDonald coming back to tell us that we should let nature kill the dinosaurs the way it did already before we screwed everything up. Which, I'm supposed to be sympathetic to him. He's the nostalgia piece that's supposed to set the tone. So he's saying, let the lava have them. But then the good guys want to save them. And so I'm not sure who this movie wants me to root for. But I end up basically just saying I don't want the bad guys to win.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, dude, if there were dinosaurs running around, I would not. I mean, you wouldn't be. I wouldn't be saying, "Oh, let's please capture them and put them in a zoo." I would be saying, "Let's eradicate those things."
Yeah, not after the last zoo turned into a human feeding frenzy.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
would you see a dinosaur outside, or it's trying to break through your? I mean, they could just bust through the whole house. You're
Yeah.
not going to call. I mean, who are you going to call? I'm going to be pulling out as many guns as I got, and anyway.
Well, all cards on the table. I would be the idiot being carried off by a pterodactyl, because if they really opened a Disney World full of real life dinosaurs, I would be there with a T-shirt and a hat on. I would probably sell my house to try to get there. So y'all would see me on CNN being like carried off by a pterodactyl. But in this world, you would be very reluctant to see those creatures interact with the broader public, right?
Oh yeah.
So what's good and true and awesome here? We're looking for common grace, because the people who are making these movies are, fallen, yes, absolutely. Rebels against their creator, sure. Even for those that are Christians, there's fallenness in mankind that awaits a future total eradication in Christ's glorification. But nonetheless, they're going to surface the goodness in which God created them as storytellers, right? So they're made in the image of this great storyteller. They're going to become little storytellers who follow in his path in some ways, and some of what they're doing is going to be good. So, Jared, let me throw this to you. One of the things I like about the Jurassic Park franchise is that it does twist the nose of man's arrogance when it comes to scientific advancement, right? We live in a world, we've talked about this on the show before, we assume because we're more technologically sophisticated that we are more advanced and wiser and superior to those who've gone before. It's what C.S. Lewis called chronological snobbery. Well, Jurassic Park reaches back at that large cultural blind spot and says, no, dummy, just because you can do more stuff doesn't mean you're more in control or better prepared to sort of impose your will on this world that stands apart from you. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate that this movie understands human corruption works its way into everything. The first time we meet Jurassic Park, it's the child of this Colonel Sanders looking dude who just wants to give the world a thrilling weekend away of entertainment, to marvel at these extinct creatures, right?
Mm-hmm.
But human corruption works its way in, everything goes sideways, and people are harmed. And so this franchise keeps bringing that up, that even when people want to do good things, now don't get me wrong, there's a lot of characters in this movie who want to do bad things. But this franchise understands, and this movie understands, that even when people want to do good, human corruption, most often through greed, is going to corrupt even the most grand endeavors that mankind seeks after. These movies in some ways are sort of retelling the Tower of Babel. Let's build this great thing to show the world how wonderful we are and to bring all these benefits to ourselves. And God's judgment eventually comes in, and their arrogance is condemned, and he uses their arrogance as the mechanism to bring his judgment. So that's what I see that's good and true and awesome here. What do you see?
I think you hit the nail on the head, man. Those are all good points. I thought that Chris Pratt's character, as far as I thought him being willing to sacrifice himself, was noble and praiseworthy. I mean, when they're running from the lava and him going back and helping I was going to say the nerd fella. I can't remember his name.
The computer programmer guy or hacker
programmer, yeah. When he falls down, and he's always the one who's got courage in these movies, in the Jurassic World franchise. He's the one always, and Claire does as well. And even the little girl, she exhibited many positive traits that are praiseworthy.
So like bravery.
Yeah, bravery and just doing what's right even when you're scared. All those things are praiseworthy and worth pointing out. But again, the reason why they're doing this, kind of their overarching goal, the meta narrative, is something I can't embrace, and I actually think it's immoral. And so it's more difficult in this movie than in other movies that we've covered on this show.
Well, that's a great segue into our fourth question. So I'm going to let you take that thread and run with it after I introduce the question itself. Sure. The fourth thing we ask is, what's distorted, evil, and false in this story? Specifically, how can we subvert idolatry? We want to identify the negative ideas that are contrary to God's standards, his revelation of himself in Christ, and reject those things. So, Jared, where are the distortions and where's evil and falsehood in this movie?
Well, they get the dignity of man wrong because they try to exalt, and by man I mean mankind, men, women, children, human beings. They get that wrong because they seek to exalt these animals to an equal position with mankind. They're diminishing the fact that man is made in God's image. And if you'll notice in these movies, folks, what they try to do is they try to humanize. I mean, you'll notice the raptor crying at one point. They talk about it's one of the most intelligent animals on creation, and I mean, they make all these arguments to try to show you, see, they're really like us. They're really human like us. And even the little girl who's a clone at the end who says she's got to let him go because they're alive like me.
She's got to let them go in a way that prevents them from dying in a like cyanide gas attack, right?
Right. And so what's crazy is she's worse than the folks who were there for greed. Oh, she's not releasing them into the wild. She's releasing them into a city. And I mean, can you imagine the casualties with that many dinosaurs running around, flying around? Those things eat like crazy. I mean, T-Rex eats brontosauruses. How many human beings equals a brontosaurus?
I don't know, Jared. I think you need to do that math and report back to us.
I mean, it's crazy. But so they try to humanize the animals. They don't try to animalize the humans, because if they did, we would cry foul.
And we'd be disturbed, right?
We would. And I mean, just think about the inconsistency here. So, for example, think about when they're trying to save Blue. They're trying to save the raptor. What do they do? How do they save that raptor? They go into the T-Rex and against the will of the T-Rex. So if you want to argue that these animals are persons and they have the dignity of persons, well, you can't just steal someone's blood from an eye. You can't steal. By eye, I mean a person. You can't go against somebody's will without their permission and take something out of their body.
Right, but they're perfectly comfortable doing it with the T-Rex to save Blue.
Yes.
When she's shot. Yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't even thought about that.
Well, I mean, there's so much hypocrisy and lunacy. It's like they're trying to get us to think that these animals are human, but then if they're human, it means that when a T-Rex kills a brontosaurus, we need to lock that thing up in T-Rex prison, right? I mean, that's the consistent.
Are we watching Zootopia now? All of a sudden, we've just switched.
Your favorite movie?
I hate Zootopia, but I mean, yeah, that's kind of the thing there. Like carnivores, they can't act according to their nature because it's bad for society. Yeah, I get it. It just becomes this morally ridiculous scenario to assign equal value to an animal as you would a human. Yeah. Like you're saying, it puts you in all kinds of mental quandaries.
I mean, dude, they literally unleashed I can't think of it. I mean, that's got to be hundreds and hundreds of people are going to die, if not thousands of people are going to die. Because those animals are going to eat 50 to 100 a day. It blows my mind, and that is presented as moral at the end, which is just foolish because they're alive like we are. Well, bacteria are alive like we are. Do we believe in killing bacteria? I mean, this is just the insanity of this, because if we're all just glorified animals, what is a bacteria? Is it not just a smaller animal? Is it not just a smaller So I mean, if you affirm evolution and you believe that all of us are alive and we're all alive in an equal way. So all of nature's creations, for lack of a better term, or the will of nature, if all of these things are of equal value because the source is the same, Mother Nature.
Well, when we say of equal value, the value is nothing, right? Like we act inconsistently with these principles. So people are going to say, well, animals deserve the same rights as humans, but the more consistent conclusion from their first premises that we're all products of random chance is that nobody has any dignity at all. So the actual value is zero. Nobody and no thing has any actual dignity.
Right. So they have no basis upon which to say that we should treat animals fairly, right? They have nothing to appeal to. And when they start trying to appeal to it, say, well, we all have the same source, Mother Nature, blah, blah. Well, so does bacteria. But you believe in eradicating disease, right? When you get certain bacteria in your body, you believe in taking medicine to kill it, right?
Well now we've gone from Zootopia to Dr. Seuss's Horton Hears a Who, right? A person's a person, no matter how small, Jared.
Oh, my goodness.
A bacteria? Yeah, okay.
That's funny.
Anyway, but your point stands. I'm being goofy here, but your point's right on. Like, let's try to live consistently with these premises, and it falls off the rails pretty quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, we all want to eradicate disease. We all want to eradicate bad bacteria, right? I mean,
or cancer cells that are actually part of our, like they're arising from our own DNA.
Yeah.
We want to stop that from happening.
Right. And for what reason? How do we justify that if we really affirm what this movie's premise is, right?
Yeah.
And so this worldview, I mean, it is unlivable. And if you want to test out a worldview, whether or not
it's valid,
if you can't live it, it's not valid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, if it's not this movie, it's not rational at all.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned. So what I wrote in my notes for this episode under this heading is the movie leads with a really philosophical proposition, which is this: what is ought to be, but doesn't want to live that all the way out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even contradictory within itself because, again, we're supposed to say, the nature, capital N nature, willed to eradicate the dinosaurs, but nature, through nature's products, brought the dinosaurs back. So which nature gets to trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you evaluate that?
Yeah, you can't, man. I mean, there's so much inconsistency. But we live in it's funny though. Do you think postmodernism is kind of it's odd because science is often modern, right? Modernistic. But in this movie, people often don't care to be a walking contradiction, you know?
Mm-hmm. I really do want to know. I guess this is out there somewhere. And if not, hopefully someone, reporting we'll get to this, but I really want to know what the creators behind this movie wanted the audience to think when that little girl turns the animals out and says, I had to because they're alive like me. Are they wanting us to feel like something profoundly good has happened here, or something profound in any sense? Are they expecting the audience to go, yes, that's the morally right, upright, just thing to do with these animals? And then I would love to poll people who have seen the movie and ask them what their gut reaction to that choice was.
Yes.
For me, it was the most ridiculous moment in the movie. And it's a movie about dinosaurs being brought back from the dead. Yeah. Which, I'm saying that. I realize we live in a world where cloning takes place, but there's still a lot of suspension of disbelief that has to go into watching a Jurassic Park movie. But when she did that, I thought, this is catastrophically foolish. This is the moral equivalent of Nazi ideology.
Absolutely. That's a great point. It is.
Am I supposed to be sympathetic to this little girl?
It's natural selection, isn't it? It's let's just let the animals sort them out who lives and dies.
Yeah, it's Nietzscheism.
Yeah.
I really want to know what they were aiming for, and I want to know what most people felt when they saw it play out on the screen, because I just can't help but think even people who would reject a Christian worldview, I think they're going to look at that and go, you turned a velociraptor loose in the suburbs? This is not an endorsement. This is not a recommendation to watch it. But there's a documentary on Netflix right now about a cult in the 80s who ran up against some ranchers out in Oregon. The cult moved in next door to these ranchers. And as the conflict escalates, the cult starts cultivating salmonella. And they go into the town and go to all the salad bars and release the salmonella on the salad bars in an attempt to, make the populace sick. And I think the documentary says it's the largest documented case of poisoning in American history. Mm. That little girl did the same thing. Mm-hmm. But it comes off as if we're all supposed to assume that this is her making the right choice. I know we're circling around this. It's just so absurd. It's hard to get my brain around someone putting it out there as a narrative point that it looks like they expect their audience to believe was a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine, like, in 20 years, a kid like us, if they're able to make dinosaurs like that, a kid being able to make a decision like that, and they interview the kid later, why did you let the T-Rex loose, killed 1,000 people?
It was alive.
It was alive like me.
All right, so I guess we've beat that aspect to death. Anything else you want to say about fallenness here?
No, I think that's good, man.
Okay. Well, then, Jared, how does the gospel apply when we're thinking about this movie? That's our final question. How are you going to say you can see the glory of Christ in this film when you're talking to a fellow believer, just in casual conversation, when you're talking to someone you're discipling or being discipled by, or, a neighbor who is self-consciously not a Christian?
Why don't you start us out on this, man?
Well, the one thing I want to say is that so much of what this movie attributes to nature, God actually delivers on. He's the one who's orchestrating history. Mm-hmm. He takes responsibility for history to play out in the way that he wills. And the upside is he's not blind and capricious the way nature is. Mm-hmm. He reveals himself as a father. He demonstrated in the death of his son that he is more committed to fixing the ills and evils and brokenness of this world than even we are. When we think about something that happens in this world that's morally atrocious and leaves people wounded and broken, the person who's most offended by that and most committed to changing it is the creator who sent his son into the story to undo those things at ultimate cost to himself. Mm-hmm. And so this movie wants someone to be at the controls of cosmic history. Mm. And the good news is there actually is someone, and he's fundamentally loving and desires to be known and desires even for humans to flourish. Mm. The sort of secondary benefit there is the same one who created dinosaurs for his glory determined that there would be a phase of history where they did not exist. They may return in the new creation. I have no idea. But I'm not left trying to evaluate whether what has happened should have happened or not. I'm not a determinist, but I am a Christian. And so if God has orchestrated history in this way, I'm going to be confident that God is controlling all things for his purposes and the good of his people. Mm-hmm. And guess what? He really is the one to be obeyed. The Ian Malcolm perspective here is, I think I called him McDonald earlier in the episode, but Ian Malcolm, he wants people to bow the knee to nature. Well, you can bow the knee to a good father. And when I say can, I mean, ultimately everyone's going to. But the good news is we can do that now in a way that gives us access to joy and flourishing in the person of the one we're kneeling before. And it gives us the rest of saying, you know what? The one who is greatest is in control. The one who's greatest has the greatest responsibility, but he's also the one who's got the greatest track record of faithfulness. Mm-hmm. And so we can rest in him being the one who's running the show. I'm really thankful for that.
Oh, yeah, amen. I mean, this worldview is just, well, it's bankrupt. I mean, who wants to live in a world where nature controls everything? I mean, you realize that if this movie is right, that, bow to nature. Well, I mean, if you're consistently bowing to nature, why not just let T-Rex eat you? Right?
Hey, look, we can press this further, Jared. I don't want to provoke people who have dealt with hard things, but if this movie is right and the worldview it represents, which is enthroned in our day, if this movie is right, when your daughter dies of cancer, it's unreasonable for you to mourn. Nature has expressed its will. Try living that out.
Oh, yeah, that's miserable. I mean, yeah, because there's a human dignity and we know. I mean, just think about how we bury folks and think about how much we care for the body and how much we care. I mean, how much money we spend on funerals and all the dignity that is expressed in that whole process.
Yeah, I really think, I don't want to linger here too long, but I really think even among fallen people, the closest they get to understanding that they're living in God's world is when they're standing around the grave of someone they love. We spend a lot of time and energy trying to tell each other death is just part of the natural cycle of life. It's just as natural as birth. We can celebrate a life, but when you're standing at the grave of someone that you love, you feel at the core of your being, this is not how things should be. Mm-hmm. Death is an enemy in that moment, even if it's brief and even if you're able to crowd it out of your mind. Mm-hmm. At that very moment, you're living in God's world inescapably.
Well, and I think even with disease, mm-hmm. even with when bad things happen to us, even when you go up and you go up to a moral relativist and you punch them, they're going to, or you steal something from them, they're going to want to say you're wrong, mm-hmm. right? All of a sudden their moral relativism goes out the window. And, where does that come from, right?
Well, that's the old Lewis thing, right? If all we ever knew was the cosmos, which means all we've ever known is a fallen and broken world, from where do we get the comparison from which we say this ought not to be or something else ought to be? He says, what is the straight line that you're comparing this crooked line against?
Yeah. Amen. Yeah, there's a moral law pressing down. There is an ought to be pressing down. I think you're right. I mean, on everything you pointed on there, concerning God's sovereignty and Him being a good Father and our need for Him, and this movie cries out for a Savior. I mean, what's wrong with the world is not ultimately, well, I'll say it is ultimately man, but God has also cursed the rest of creation because of man's sin. And what's going to overturn that is not by releasing dinosaurs on the populace.
Or just telling nature whatever you want, that will be the whole of the law.
Yeah. What the way that is fixed is that our sin must be taken care of and that curse must be lifted. And what's amazing is that curse is everyone who hangs on a tree. And so that curse is being lifted by God the Son incarnate through Him taking that curse and being treated like He sinned against God so that true sinners could go free. And so by Christ coming and taking care of our sin, all things are going to be restored and reconciled through Him. I mean, one day I believe that in Christ that curse, there's a sense where it's been lifted because we are citizens of a new Jerusalem already. And it appears that place already exists. Do you believe that, Jeff? Is it already there? I mean, did John see something that is real already, or is he looking ahead?
Well, when he's looking at the throne room, I think he's dealing with present day realities. You think about the martyrs on the throne saying, "How long until you avenge us?"
Yeah.
I imagine that's happening invisibly right now.
Do you think there's the New Jerusalem's or it exists because he saw it coming down?
Now that I don't know, Jared. I don't know. It's existing by the time he sees it coming down, in the sense of like, if that's a preview of cosmic history, it will have existed prior to its descent. But I don't know. I don't know if it's sitting in the clouds waiting to be revealed along with the sons of God and the ultimate high priest over the household of God or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm curious if Christ is already there in that New Jerusalem, and that earth and heaven are going to be one day when God's dwelling is going to be with man.
Yeah, I hope we get to find out soon.
In the new heavens and new earth. Amen. I hope He comes before we finish this episode. But I say all that to say, man, that what this movie cries out for is Christ. I mean, good grief. Isn't it crazy that they actually presented releasing dinosaurs on mankind as a positive good thing, like that we need to, that
we should rejoice to see that nature red in tooth and claw. Hallelujah.
I mean, it's crazy, but man, isn't Jesus so much better than this movie? I mean, come on, listener. Even if you're not a Christian, you have to be able to look at Christianity and say that what we present, what the Bible presents concerning the end, is so much better than this movie presents. Do you want to live with dinosaurs? You want to hide?
Dinosaurs and their hostility. I guess we've gone kind of long on this one anyway, so I don't want to spend a ton of time here. But Paul Assay wrote the review of Jurassic World for Plugged In.
Yeah.
Just all my cards on the table. I don't always find Plugged In's approach to movies, in line with what I'm seeing. Of course, that's not an indictment of them, but I just don't always resonate with what they're saying. But he presents this as sort of a second fall, and that makes sense. It's called Fallen Kingdom, right? So if we go into the biblical narrative, there is a time when the animal world lived in harmony with mankind, and that was prior to Adam's fall. And then hostility entered in between creature and creature, right? But like you said, in Christ, in the second Adam, the greater Adam, the one who will restore all things, we're, as fanboy as I am about dinosaurs and whatnot, I don't know if they're going to be part of the new creation, but we get all this language about, lions lying down with lambs and children sticking their hands into snakes' dens and not being bitten. We're going to live in a world where mankind and the animal kingdom is reconciled. We are in a fallen kingdom right now, but we will soon receive a descending kingdom that's really going to make all these things harmonious. And man, it's going to be beautiful. Now, it's going to be beautiful as a secondary aspect. The primary beauty is going to be seeing Jesus Christ and living under His reign. But it's a happy consequence that turning a powerful carnivore out among humans will not always be a threat to those humans' lives, or that animals, for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, if there are dinosaurs in the new heavens and new earth, I mean, if you look at the garden and how Adam named all the animals, it appears they obeyed his commands.
Mhm.
I mean, if there are dinosaurs in the new heavens and new earth, they will submit to us.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it'll be amazing. It'll be what Jurassic World longs for, but they want to do it without Christ. Not, they don't long for that. I don't know. I wonder if they want to train the dinosaurs. They want to live at peace with them.
Well, they present Blue here as like a Labrador retriever with sharper claws. She's like playing cuddly games with Chris Pratt as a baby and
Yeah.
responding to his clicker. So, yeah, I think they're wanting some kind of harmonious natural order. They just don't have a worldview that can deliver it.
Exactly right. So what this movie longs for, Christianity actually delivers. I mean, it's what Adam had in the garden, and it's what we're going to have in the new heavens and new earth.
Because of Christ, absolutely.
Because of Christ.
Yeah. If you want to talk about creation care, I think Christians are often lambasted as people who don't care about the natural world and they don't care to, take care of creation. We're the ones who believe that we're going to reign over it forever and that it has continuity into eternity with our lives here. So I'm not saying Christians always live this out consistently, but the ideology of Christianity gives us the best resource to really take care of a planet that we've been given as a stewardship and hopefully hand it off into the future for a remaking that makes it even better when King Jesus is visibly reigning.
Amen, man. Amen.
So I guess we've kind of got all excited about the reign of the Son of God. I hope you can understand why we would do that, listener.
Absolutely.
Jared, anything else to say?
No, I think that's it, man.
All right. Well, guys, once again, thank you for listening to this episode, specifically to those of you who may have pressed download because you saw us promoted on Podbean. Welcome in. Thanks for listening. We would love to hear from y'all. We'd love to hear from you through email. You can email us at pccdpod@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Twitter at pccdpod. At Facebook, same deal. We have a Facebook group. It's got a long name, but it's a pretty cool environment on Facebook. It's called the Pop Culture Coram Deo Perpetual After Party. That community has grown steadily, and there's a lot of good conversations and articles that are shared in there. We'd love to have you jump in there and just be part of the party in that Facebook group. And specifically, we would also like to hear from you in reviews. iTunes uses reviews left on their service to tell new listeners, hey, you might want to check this show out. Look, we covet 5-star reviews, but if you say, hey, I can't give you 5 stars, we'll take whatever you can give us, because one, again, it tells iTunes that more people ought to know about this show and helps us know what you like and don't like about the show so we can improve it. We'd also appreciate you telling a friend, hey, go listen to this episode and let's talk about it over coffee. So any of those methods of feedback or spreading the word about the show, we would deeply appreciate. We hope we're being a service to the church, and that kind of communication lets us know to what degree we're meeting that goal. So thanks in advance to any of you who choose to take up one of those options. Jared, I know that you've got a lot of stuff going on outside of the world of the Pop Culture Coram Deo podcast. Where can our listeners find you out in the broader world?
You can find me on Twitter at Jared H. Moore. You can find me on Facebook at All Truth is God's Truth. Actually, I have another podcast called All Truth is God's Truth. Check it out. And you can find Jeff and I writing companion pieces for these shows and movies at Patheos, patheos.com/blogs/Pop Culture Coram Deo. Go check it out. I think you'll find several interesting articles there.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll find some new interesting articles sometime in the near future. I think Jared and I both need to kind of get back on the stick with writing for Patheos, an opportunity we're glad to have. So hopefully you'll find more content from us there. Guys, we're going to put a bow on this one. We're offering thanks again to all of you for listening. We will be back to you next week. Right now, the plan is for us to catch Ant-Man and the Wasp and come back to the microphone and record another episode about that movie. So, Lord willing, that comes to fruition, and we will be back to talk with you about that movie next week. Until then, thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you next time on the Pop Culture Coram Deo podcast.
just got done celebrating the 4th with my church, so we had a great time, man. Really did.
Okay. Did y'all pray to receive Uncle Sam as your personal patriotic symbol?
No, we did not. No, we did not. What about you? Did you preach from the Constitution this morning?
I preached from Malachi chapter 3, actually. Will a man rob God?
You tied in somehow?
We didn't talk about the country at all, except about how our nation is particularly consumeristic.
Wowzers, dude.
Yeah.
We did have more of a patriotic thing this morning, man. And I talked about our role in society as Christians and talked about, basically what kind of Carl Henry's vision for Christian interaction with society, culture.
Oh, that's great. I'd love to hear that. If your church recorded it, let me know. I'll throw it in the old earbuds.
Well, it was maybe 15 minutes because we did like a cantata thing first and then did that. But
wait. Are you telling me you preached for 15 minutes on the Lord's Day?
I did. This morning I did. What is
Jared Moore.
Did I miss in the Bible where the time, like, that's longer than Jesus preached the Sermon on the Mount?
Did I miss in the Bible where God called us to use cantatas on Lord's Day corporate worship? Hashtag regulative principle.
Hey, I'm loose regulative principle, brother. Are you hard? You a hard shell?
I'm hard. My shell is hard enough to keep me from having a cantata that keeps me from preaching for more than 15 minutes.
Dude, I preached, if you want to call it that. It might have been 20, I don't know.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Dude, I preached like 45 minutes. Does that define, like, work as your definition of a sermon?
Somewhere, Brian Chappell just shed a tear, and he didn't even know why. He just felt a disturbance in the force.
In the force? Did you say in the force?
Yeah.
You new age hypocrite.
Dude, I'm for real. I'm blown away you preached for 15 minutes. But this is not what people came to hear us talk about. And so I am moving this to the end of the episode as bonus content.
They're learning that you are a legalist. That's what
and they're learning that you are a liberal. Let's sing about the nation and preach a 15-minute sermonette. I'm going to start calling you preacherette.
Well, that's probably better than what some people call me.